cocktail sessions, educational and inspirational talks from experienced startup founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders.
All right. Well, wanted to thank Frank and Jen for welcoming me here. We're all here as part of a big experiment, the Downtown Project, and what it means to create a community of many different interests, both entrepreneurial and technical. And so I was interested in talking about some of my experiences from Silicon Valley and thoughts about what you want to build in the future. Now, where I studied back in England, we have a Silicon Glen. I lived in New York, where they have a Silicon Alley, and there are a number of places around the world that have been inspired in Silicon Valley in one way or another. Now, time for some audience participation here is have a guess at how many locations around the world identify themselves as in Silicon Valley in this way. Do you have a number? 30? No, not close. 100 is closer. I'll tell you what, I'll tell you the answer at the very end, okay? Now, my experience is that after growing up in England, I decided to sort of like repay a free education by emigrating. And, it's not quite socialism, but, something a little bit closer to that from what you find in America. Came out to America, had a number of detours, which basically was career disasters. I worked on an animated film and got laid off. I worked on a computer game company and got laid off. And, each and every time I'm, telling my mom, okay, this is economics at work, it's creative destruction. But she was just very worried about me. And of course, though, that once you get through those failures, that they're inevitable, they happen to everyone, you get a chance to explore something very, very different. So I got involved in this startup called Keyhole. It was a bunch of people from Silicon Graphics that developed this software where you could fly around the world like Superman. And we were, 25 people at the time, gone through a very difficult period, and the result of which everyone had cut salaries. The founders had put their own money into the company just to keep it alive. And it started turning. In fact, actually, the thing that saved us as a company was, remarkably enough, the Iraq War. Because what happened is that CNN wanted to explain what was happening, so they would show our imagery on CNN all the time. And the publicity of this was incredible. And this generated a lot of interest and business that kept the company going and inching up. And so just as we were about to accept a new round of funding after a gap of years and years where we just couldn't get anything, we had a call from Google. And so there's this big choice of you can build an independent company or you can join this Google thing. And, what is that? It was a private company at the time, and we're thinking, well, we don't know their numbers. Could be this, could be that. And so what it came down to in the end was really what actually powers startups to begin with, which is passion. And what we were really trying to do was to take the technology we developed and share it with as wide an audience as possible. And by teaming up with Google, we were able to take a product that used to cost, $100 a year and then make it available to everyone for free. And of course, we went through with it, went through the acquisition and became Google Earth. And that was a roller coaster like nothing I could have described before going through it. Before the acquisition, we started off with 100,000 installs of the product, and a year later, we were 100 million. And it's like three orders of magnitude in the space of 12 months. I mean, it's just crazy. But as you go through things like this, what you start to understand is about a good many of the things in Silicon Valley that help it work effectively as an ecosystem. The people understand what it means to create a startup, so that everyone you work with, everything from facilities to like lawyers, they all understand how startups work. And so there's a tremendous amount of support. You also have a lot of people that have had previous successes. In case of Keyhole and Google Earth, it was a lot of people from Silicon Graphics who'd made their money and decided they wanted to do something new. And that when you have that critical mass of ecosystem, you start attracting other people as well. So, for example, I saw Tony Hsieh give the talk about Downtown Project, as I'm sure he has done many times, around the country and around the world. And I was inspired by that. So, for example, I already knew something about it as an investor in Launchbed and Elizabeth Yin. And she'd moved to Las Vegas with the company as part of the Vegas Tech Fund. And yet, it wasn't until I heard Tony, I thought, all right, it's time. I need to come and visit. And so that here I am, and what I sense is this sort of like amazing experiment to see about, okay, what kind of community it is that you want to build. What are the things that you're inspired by? But the thing, though, that gives me sort of like a pause about it, though, is that I often hear about some other city in the world that's decided, okay, we like that Silicon Valley thing. That's interesting. That's good fun. We want our own version of that. And often it doesn't end up working out like that. That they have some tech companies, but at the same time, Silicon Valley has remained king. And so I think about, okay, well, if you want to be more successful than that, you have to do something different. So what is it that you do different? And so this actually brings me back to this answer actually about how many places around the world identify themselves as being connected to Silicon Valley. Now, there is actually, turns out, a Wikipedia page on this very subject. Yeah, seriously. And there are a number of places on there. Hyderabad, for example, is actually known as Cyberabad, as in Cyber-abad. And numerous other ones that some I can't even pronounce. And there's a total of actually close to about 80 cities around the world. But you know the one place that's not on that list? Las Vegas. There is no Silicon Las Vegas. If you do a search for Silicon Las Vegas, the top article is from 2011, which means that I'm not sure how this happened, was it by accident or design, but the point I wanted to make with this is that for you to be successful, I would suggest looking about doing something different. Zappos as a company, for example, when it moved here partly so that it can bring together a critical mass of people and staff that obviously you already know and respect. I mean, they're obviously tremendously successful with that. And Tony would talk in his book about how he couldn't get enough of those good people back in San Francisco, where they were based originally. And so I'm not sure what it is that I'm not sure exactly what the difference is that will work for you. I mean, that's your challenge to figure that out. But what I would suggest is to try and be different and be special and successful in your own way. And that though you won't be, exactly like Silicon Valley, I think that you've got a wonderful opportunity here to create a community, an ecosystem that is, special and successful in of itself. and I'm looking forward to seeing more of it, and I wish you every success with that. Yeah. So.